In my first Stuck for Ideas video, I was interested in that moment when students have a completely blank mind and they ask for help. Starting a project, no ideas, the feeling that their imagination is empty. So my tips for teachers and for any young artists in that position of having a blank mind, my 3 tips were about how to deal with that and how to enable your imagination to be unlocked through some simple actions. In the second part of the video, I talked about the difference between doodling, which is one of the ways of unlocking your imagination when you have a blank mind, and sketching, which is one of the tools available when you're trying to develop ideas. So I introduced the difference between a blank mind and the beginnings of an idea that you might want to develop. It was great to get some comments. Some of the questions and comments about that video showed me that I needed to talk more about other methods for developing an idea once it begins to emerge, because sketching isn't the only method. So at the beginning of a project, when ideas have begun to emerge a little bit, what are the things we can do? Here are my 3 tips for helping develop an idea that has begun to emerge. All of these 3 tips share a common quality, based on the principle that I believe very strongly that action unlocks the imagination. Just sitting and trying to think of ideas is not the most successful way of working in art. In art, action unlocks the imagination. Action is what generates ideas. Now, in the previous video, I did say that daydreaming, when you're completely stuck, is a way of dealing with that. And that's still true. Daydreaming is a really interesting tool, if you like, when you're completely stuck, because the first thing it does is it relaxes you and it distracts you from the worry you have of, I don't know what to do. Daydreaming is a really important part of any phase of creativity. But struggling to think of things is not the best way of developing ideas. Equally, when you have ideas in your head, visualizing them in your imagination only goes so far. Beginning to see them in action helps you develop more options and helps you sort out which ideas in your imagination you like and which ones you're prepared to discard. So what are the 3 types of action? My 3 tips for developing ideas. Well, one is sketching. I believe that sketching is a very important tool, and I know that many students are nervous about their drawing and nervous about the quality of their sketching. I still think it needs to be taught, because sketching is very good for helping you organize the parts of a composition, helping you decide which things you will include and which things you will exclude, and working out how to fit them together. But these sketches do not need to be pretty or highly skilled. They're a very rough form of creating diagrams that help you put onto paper in a very rough, approximate way the things that you're thinking. And simply by doing this, it frees your mind up to come up with even more ideas. So the sketching is not about making fantastic drawings. It's about just getting a visual note down on the paper. So sketching is one thing, and for some types of artwork, sketching is the most beneficial way of developing ideas. What's the second action or type of action we can use for developing ideas? Experimenting. Experimenting with materials, methods, new tools. Some of my earlier videos have given examples of this in different art projects. Experimenting with a new set of pencils, or mixing colours with your paints, or making a new colour wheel, or seeing how many different kinds of line you can make. All of these unlock the imagination. The third action that can help us develop ideas is simply play. Yes, just playing with the materials that you're working with. One of my projects is a sculpture project with young students called Miniature Worlds. And in this project, I suggest to students that they might find toys or create small characters that they are then going to set up in a kind of theatrical performance in some real-world location, indoors or outdoors, and then photograph these. In this sculpture project, I likened play to 3D sketching. Julia developed her ideas by playing with colored modeling clay, folded paper, and toys. And Victor developed his ideas by playing in the kitchen with baking flour, twigs from the garden, and his toy soldiers. In my next level Nōtan project, I encouraged students to discover ideas through play, discovering different abstract compositions with torn paper, and playing with light and shadows helped my 5th and 6th graders create surprising approaches to photography. So we have, in this way, we have 3 types of action, quite different. One that is sketching, one that is experimenting with materials and methods, and the third one is simply play. You might find other ways of developing ideas once they've started to form in your mind. Remember that the principle at work is the imagination is great. Put the imagination into action. When you act on your imagination, when you create some physical or visual note that records your imagination, more ideas can come and you can start to organize your ideas for your artwork. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to click like and share it. If you want to see more short videos with art tips, art projects and lesson ideas, please subscribe to my channel, Rob the Art Teacher.